Hello, we have a strategic emergency update right now, and it is with the Russian war. Now, Putin has basically enhanced or strengthened the attacks on Kiev with shelling, rockets, and other things. And he's also threatened the Western allies that he will actually be targeting, well, not targeting, but he will hit NATO's shipment of weapons. Now, if he actually kills NATO troops, whether they're shipping weapons or not to Ukraine, that really would maybe bring NATO into the war, which he really doesn't want. So the question is Putin actually bluffing in hopes of getting NATO to stop shipping weapons to Ukraine, which I'm not really sure is going to work because the United States and the NATO allies have been pretty strong in their efforts to ship weapons into Ukraine. But if he actually hits like a NATO cargo or a NATO supply chain, will NATO strike back? And if NATO strikes back, is that the end of civilization as we know it? Will there be a break in the chain of command? Now, since he's actually issued, that he's actually issued this warning, I think the chance of Armageddon has increased to about, maybe like 9 or 10%, up from 5 or 6%. So it's still pretty good news, guys. We still got 90% that eventually this war will be over and things will actually return to normal and prices will start to go down. But we have about a 10% chance of the end of civilization in Armageddon. I don't really know what Putin's psychology is. I don't know if he's bluffing. And I don't really know if his officers would actually fall through with this because there's a couple of people in command places in Russia that could be like, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to risk ending civilization. And I'm not really sure how the dynamic between Russia and NATO is actually going to work out because that's actually very, very hard to actually discuss or to really gauge. Like, how far is he actually willing to go? And is he actually willing to risk the end of humanity to actually win this war? Now, you got to think that you're like a dictator that's a sociopath because basically the only ways that authoritarian governments and dictators fall from power is if they actually lose a war. This is why China doesn't attack Taiwan because Xi Jinping knows that if it drags on and he loses, he could easily be ousted from power. And there's a lot of people that don't like him. So if he gets ousted from power, he might just die. Putin might be facing the same things. I don't know if he has as much opposition in Russia as Xi Jinping has internally in China, but if we guess it's about the same, then he might actually be afraid of that. There's also rumors that he has cancer and he's trying to solidify his legacy before he dies, but he probably has the best medical staff that Russia can actually have. So I don't really think those rumors are actually true. I do know he's probably trying to solidify his legacy, and he's basically playing a game of chess, seeing like how far he can push before NATO will strike back, and like how much backbone does NATO have? Will he actually strike NATO shipments? Will NATO actually strike back at him? Will we actually be dragged into this war? The United States and the European allies. Right now, I do believe the European allies are pissing him off more than the United States because the U.S. sanctions, like on Russian oil, they're not really. The U.S. sanctions on Russian oil, they're not going to hurt it that bad, but Europe lessening its dependency on Russian oil would be devastating for Russia because that's like all the funds that the Kremlin actually gets to expand their war machine, among other things. So, and also the European allies are also shipping Ukraine weapons. So the thing is, like, he might actually strike a NATO like convoy. And if he does that, does NATO then go to war? Or do they just impose more sanctions and try to ship more weapons? And when will the tipping point actually be? So because of these threats, I do think the chance of Armageddon has essentially increased from about 5% to maybe like 10%. Now, fishing season is about to start, open water season. So if he institutes Armageddon, I'm really going to be pissed off because I was looking forward to like a very nice fishing season the gas prices suck for me driving everywhere, but I can deal with that. Nuclear Armageddon, I'm much, much less likely to actually deal with. I'm not interested in catching radioactive fish. And I don't really want just like random like giant bombs going off everywhere. Like, at any second. So we'll see like what breaks down, but I needed to like basically tell you guys about this new update that Putin has threatened to hit NATO convoys. And I don't think Joe Biden and NATO are actually backing down. So the threat of nuclear Armageddon has just been up from about 5% chance to 10% chance. So that is the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.